Krishna Krisaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Tasjitadishitharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radha Radhe, Jaya Radha, Krishna Radha, Krishna Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Let's read from the introduction, page 1 of Bhagavad Gita as it is, all together. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadi Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Kritam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Paramatma Prabhu, please unmute for us and read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother, Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Dasa and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Sri Chaitanya, Lord Krishna Chaitanya, and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadara, Sri Vas, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Okay. So last week we stopped we on chapter 2, verse 30. Last week we read verse 29. Is that right? I remember reading verse 29 last week. So let's read from verse 30 today. Right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dehi nityam avadyoyam, dehe sarvasya bharata, tasmat sarvani bhutani, navatvam sochitum arhasi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one had to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as the soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Okay, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So here you see now, for the last few verses, we've been discussing the immortal soul and that the soul is separate from the body is material and all of that. But you'll find there's going to be a little shift, or Krishna is going to progress further now and discuss more the topic on Arjuna's duty. Right. Oh, let us go to the next verse. Who wants to read for us? Kadruta Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can read for us, Mataji. Read from the beginning. Swadharmam, the verse.
Dharmamapi chavashya navikampitum marhasi dharmayadi yudacharyoniyat shatyasya navidyate. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation, purpose. Out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called Kshatriya. Kshat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection. The Kshatriyas, just a moment, are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up the present day by the Kshatriya kings on Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyasa or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but is never a factor of principle. In the religions law books it is stated, Ahave sumito nionayam, jigmasanto mahi sita, yudamanah param shaktiya, varagam yanti aprah mukaha, yagesu pashavo brahman, hanyate satatam grijaha, samskritah kila mantra ischa tepis vargam apavunavan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Continue.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to read the rest? Okay, let me read this, the rest of the purport so we can discuss as we go along as well. Okay, in the battlefield, a king or kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving the heavenly planets after death, as the brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. Animal sacrificed gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another, and the kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are two kinds of svadharmas, or specific duty. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's svadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual. And it is not in the material body concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the brahmanas, kshatriyas, respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Svadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Svadharma is called Varanashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varanashram Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Charging one specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. Hare Krishna. So you can see here, we'll discuss this verse, we'll discuss this purport, especially the lines that I've highlighted in red. Because here, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna is speaking of, and Srila Prabhupada further elaborates that animals were also killed, but on religious principles. So this is a very nice topic here, something that we should explore and discuss and understand it correctly. It's important to understand this correctly. So I'm going to speak a little bit and then we're going to open after. You see here, Prabhupada said that when Brahmins sacrificed animals, it was in line with religious principles. The animals' bodies either got rejuvenated or they attained human bodies. The Brahmanas now, back then, they were expert. So they knew the mantras, they were able to pronounce the mantras correctly. And in doing so, because they have the capability and that ability to do it properly, the animals received human lives and got rejuvenated bodies. Now, animals were not killed for sense gratification, right? So let's discuss this. Let's discuss this point. Can we open up the chat? Paramatma Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, what's your understanding of this, Paramatma Prabhu, in relation to today?
I think Mataji, animal sacrifice was done more in the older days. It's not done too much. We follow Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness, we've got specific steps that we can follow, like the devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering. So we don't need to do all of that. We follow what Srila Prabhupada has told us.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you.
Kadrita Mataji? Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Yes, Prabhu Mataji. What's your take on this purport and on this verse? What's your take on it?
We like devotees, we have no reason to kill the animals. And if we are not eating meat, we must encourage the others to protect cows and animals in general. And for this reason, I think an animal to be killed is a big offensive. And maybe the soul of that animal will obtain a human body. This is my realization regards to this purpose.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else? Who else would like to give an understanding of what this verse is? Navkishore Mataji, Sarath Prabhu, anybody want to offer anything? Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
In this purport, like I know in the past the Kshatriyas used to kill tiger and they have a skin in the palaces and all. But is their dharma? So according to our devotee dharma, we should stop killing the animals and do follow four regulative principles by doing that. So non-violence is our main, also our main to the human, like human rights or what, to the protection of the animals.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
All right. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anybody else want to say anything? Sarath Prabhu, Madhuri Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Pranam Mataji.
Hare Pranam Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mother, just simple, just we follow for regulative principles and doing book distribution and Harinam Sankirtanam.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare.
Right.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Madhuri Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mata.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you, Mataji.
Yes. They also have a life like us. They also have souls like us. So we mustn't kill animals. We must protect them. We have a higher understanding and knowledge on the soul. So we must try and protect these animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your input, for all your inputs.
Thank you.
Okay. So here, one may who may not have a religious or Vedic background, if they read this purport, they're going to wonder, what are we talking about here? In one breath, we say we follow the four regulative principles, one of them being non-violence. So non-violence means not harming any living entity, right? So how is it that in our Vedic culture here, we say that, animals could be killed? But you must pay very careful attention to this here. Where is that? Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing of animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be act of violence, because everyone is benefited from the religious principles. Remember that these brahmanas, I'm not talking about now, I'm not talking about this day and age. I'm talking about the other yugas, where the consciousness was far more elevated and people were far more qualified. The Brahmanas then were qualified, and they knew Shastra, and they knew the mantras, and they could pronounce it absolutely 100% correctly. And it was therefore very effective. We can't attempt something like that now in this day and age, because there's no such qualified personalities as they were back then, as being quoted here in scripture. You can't chant mantras and sacrifice an animal and expect it to get a human life after that. Therefore, you don't see these kind of things happening in this day and age. That's one. Two, it says here, therefore, killing on the battlefield as well. Someone may say, Krishna is God, he's all merciful. But there Krishna is enticing Arjuna to fight. So how can he be all merciful? Is your God all merciful? How can God encourage a fight, a war, knowing that so many people are going to die and be hurt? Women will be widowed. Sons will be lost. But Krishna is encouraging this war. But we've explored that in great detail in the previous verses as well. The reasons for Krishna asking Arjuna to fight this battle. And what were some of the reasons that we spoke about? Who wants to tell us? Can you all remember some of the reasons we spoke about? Veronica, Mataji, are you here? Why did Krishna ask Arjuna to fight? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna. Sorry if I was just busy in the kitchen, but I'm here. I have Silesh's sister here. She's from Joburg. So she's also part of the Gita class today.
Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us.
You can greet her. Here she here. This is
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol, everyone.
Hare Bol. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so yeah, you can even join going forward. Veronica can share the link with you.
Yes, okay, Hare Bol, she's so keen. I'll share the link with her.
All right, thank you, Veronica. You want to tell us quickly, just give us one reason why Krishna asked Arjuna to fight?
Okay, on religious grounds he could, and that was it was part. He was a Kshatriya. It was part of his. It was his duty.
Yes, thank you. Okay, you can mute, and we ask somebody else for another reason. Who wants to give us another reason? Kadruta Mataji, give us another reason why Krishna asked Arjuna to fight?
Because he's Krishna's flame. And for this reason, Arjuna, who surrendered to him, must fight and must not thinking about their bodies, because they are souls, not bodies. They just quiet their bodies, but the soul is eternal. Okay,
thank you, Mataji. Okay, and then also, Paramatma Prabhu, you want to share a reason? Anything coming to mind?
I think they were considered aggressors.
Yes, yes.
There was a few points about what an aggressor is that you mentioned.
Yes. You want to mention some? Tell us.
One is if someone takes someone's land, without permission. I think it was taking someone else's wife. I think it was another.
Yes.
I can't recall the others one.
Yeah, one who sets house on fire, who kills somebody, steals land, kidnaps a wife. These are all aggressors. They're different types of aggressors. So because these people were aggressors, they deserved to wage war against them and be killed. Thank you, Paramatma Prabhu, for that. Thank you. Also, what's a famous verse from Bhagavad Gita?
One reason I also can tell you.
Yes, Mataji, tell us.
To save the dharma, like Krishna told that we should always follow. Am I okay?
Yes, I'm right? Absolutely, on the spot.
Yeah. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you.
I was waiting for so long to tell this.
Thank you. Please don't wait for me to ask, because sometimes I don't see all the names, on the list.
Okay.
Please just unmute and say, may I speak, or raise your hand or something, alert me, right? But thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Established principles of dharma. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam charanam praja. Isn't it? The established principles of dharma. Yeah, Krishna appeared millennium after millennium. So these people were irreligious. So they needed to be put out of the way. That's also a very important reason, right? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Right, so we spoke about these brahmanas now, right? That were very qualified and they were able to do it. Do these mantras and give rejuvenated or human-like bodies to these animals. Now, see, we draw a comparison here. These animals were not being killed in the name of religion. And, you know, like sometimes people would kill animals in the name of religion and consume the meat of that animal. These brahmanas were not killing those animals, consume their meat. They were being sacrificed for a higher purpose in terms of religious principles, right? Not for sense gratification. All right, okay, so that's that topic. Now, Krishna discussed the eternity of the soul, we said, for the past few verses, and he'll proceed now to go deeper into our duties. Telling Arjuna, you've got to fight for your, because it's your duty. Now, let's see how it applies to us. So let's go to the next verse. Right, who's reading for us now? Who didn't have a turn? Himani Mataji, we're going to read this.
Okay. Actually, from Sanskrit?
Yes, please.
I'm not that much good in this reading Sanskrit. I can read English. So
okay,
yeah.
That's fine. Okay, that's fine. So let me read that verse and then you can read the English.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yadrichaya, Chopamanam, Svargadvaram Apavritam, Sukhinaha Kshatriyaha Partha, Labhante, Yuddham Idrisham, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, Mataji. Can read from O Partha.
O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities came unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Purport. As supreme teachers of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become non-violent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a Kshatriya to be on the battlefield and to become non-violent is the philosophy of fools. In the Parasara Smriti or religious code made by Parasara, the great sage of father of Vyasadeva, it is stated, Kshatriyo hi praja rakshana sastra panih pradan dayana Nirijitya para Sanyadi Sitim Dharmena Palayat. The Kshatriyas, I also have to read this also, Mataji?
Yes,
Okay. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizen from all kinds of difficulties. And for that reason, he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he should enjoy the kingdom. And if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Okay, so you see here, now Krishna is proceeding to speak about duty. right? He says that because Arjuna is a Kshatriya, he has to fight. That's one of the reasons. And for having fighting on the battlefield as a Kshatriya, it becomes a non-violent activity, right? It's not violence because it's his duty. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But for a Kshatriya to be on the battlefield and become non-violent, that means if he stands on the battlefield and says he does not want to fight, then it's a philosophy of a fool, because then he's not doing his duty. So in other words, if he fights by doing his duty, it's based on religious principles. He's not going to incur sin for that. But if he stands on the battlefield like what Arjuna did at the beginning and said, Krishna, I shall not fight, he started becoming despondent and bewildered because of material attachment, then that is not wanted, right? That is a philosophy of a fool. That's what that means. And if a Kshatriya dies on the battlefield, it says here very nicely, Svarga dvaram apavritam. The doors of the heavenly planets are wide open for him. So there is no loss in any event. You die in doing your duty, there is no loss because the heavenly planets are open to you. That's what it means. Right. And we spoke a lot as well in the past about our duties. Remember last week, what are our duties? And you all gave us very nice reasons. So when Krishna speaks to Arjuna like this and says, you're a Kshatriya, you stand on the battlefield and fight, then what is our duty? We are also on the battlefield. Aren't we on the battlefield of material life? We are on the battlefield of material life, and we need to take these teachings of Krishna to Arjuna and apply it in our day-to-day life. That's what this verse is meaning towards. Okay. Let's go on to the next verse. Okay. Sharad Prabhu, you want to read for us? I don't know if you had a turn to read.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
What are we doing? 33.
Yes.
33.
Yes, Kumar. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is. Ata chetvam imam dharmayam sangramam na kariyasyeshi tatasva dharmam kritum cha hitva papam avapshashi. Sorry, Mataji, I'm very bad in that.
No, it's very good. It's
Okay.
very good.
Sorry. Okay. Translation. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Purport: Arjuna was a famous fighter and he attained fame by fighting many great demigods, including even Lord Shiva. After fighting and defeating Lord Shiva in the dress of a hunter, Arjuna pleased the Lord and received as a reward a weapon called Pasupatastra. Everyone knew that he was a great warrior. Even Dronacharya gave him benedictions and awarded him the special weapon by which he could kill even a teacher. So he was credited with so many military certificates from many authorities, including as adoptive father Indra, the heavenly king. But if he abandoned the battle, not only would he neglect a specific duty as a Kshatriya, but he would lose all as fame and good name and thus prepared as royal road to hell. In other words, he would go to hell not by fighting, but by withdrawing from battle.
Yes. Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you see, this is very important here. I even highlighted it. In other words, he would go to hell by not fighting, but by withdrawing from the battle. So by not doing your duty, you will go to hell. That's what Krishna says, right? So we all have duties as well. We have duties as children. We have duties as parents. We have duties as disciples to our gurus. We have duties as devotees in general, right? To each other and to the Lord. We have duties as husbands. Isn't the husband a protector as well? So we all have duties. So if we do not perform our duties properly, then that's no good. Very strongly put here, Prabhupada puts here. In other words, he would go to hell by not fighting, but by withdrawing from the battle. So we must take this seriously in our lives too. We've got to do our duties very, very carefully. Okay, and we spoke about dovetailing our duties last week as well, right? How we dovetail our duties and our activities towards Krishna consciousness. Now, let's talk a little bit about this Pashupata Ashta. It's very interesting. I read up a little bit of this. I'd like to share it with you. So the Astra weapon was given to Arjuna, right? It was given to Arjuna by Lord Shiva. It was Lord Shiva's personal weapon. And it's such a strong weapon, it's capable of destroying creation and vanquishing all living beings. And destroy creation. That's how powerful this weapon is. Right. It's most destructible. And in the Mahabharata, only Arjuna had it. In the Ramayana, one of the sages had it. I don't have the name here. I think it was Sage Parshuram. I think it was Sage Parshuram, and then Lord Ram had it. Now, following the advice, the story to this is that after Krishna advised Arjuna to go on meditation to attain this divine weapon, Arjuna left for penance. He left his brothers and he went on to do this tapasya because he wanted to attain this divine weapon, right, upon Krishna's instruction or advice. Now, as soon as Duryodhana heard about Arjun's penance, remember at the beginning we spoke about Duryodhana, Arjun's cousin. He was always envious of the Pandavas from a little boy. He was always envious of them. And, you know, they wrongfully stole the kingdom from them, etc. And that led to this battle of in Kurukshetra, right? So Duryodhana, being the envious person as he was towards Arjuna, he sent a demon to attack Arjuna. Demon called Mukasur. So Mukasur took the form of a wild boar to interrupt Arjuna's worship. He wanted to disrupt this worship so that Arjuna doesn't attain this astra. Now, upon knowing this, Lord Shiva himself appeared in the form of a hunter. And it is believed that the four Vedas, you know our four Vedas? The four Vedas personified accompanied Lord Shiva in the form of dogs to protect Arjuna. Now, Arjuna, what he did subsequently, he shot an arrow at the boar and killed it. Right? So who was this boar again? The boar was this Mukasur, right, in the form of a boar. At the same time, Shiva had also released an arrow from his bow. And thereafter, there was a scuffle arose between the two as whose arrow had killed the boar, between Lord Shiva now and Arjuna. They both released arrows. And then they started arguing about whose arrow actually killed that demon in the form of a boar. And that little argument led into a fight, and Arjuna broke Shiva's bow. Arjuna was a very strong personality. He was very empowered. So he actually broke Lord Shiva's bow. Let me just put this down so I can see my screen a little bit better. Right. So Arjuna fought with his Gandhi, you know, his bow, and Shiva came with his normal bow instead of his Pinaka. Pinaka was it's a special bow that Lord Shiva has, right? Then both of them were involved in sword fighting and wrestling. Shiva sliced and stabbed Arjuna many times and blood started flowing out like a stream. Shiva disarmed Arjuna's sword, after which they began to wrestle. When, you know, in war, one of the codes of war is if somebody is disarmed, he doesn't have a weapon, then the next person, the opposer, cannot fight with a weapon, right? Because that's not ethics of war. So Lord Shiva and Arjuna then started fighting, wrestling by hand. Shiva lifted and threw Arjuna many times. Still Arjuna rose up and was ready to attack. At last Arjuna realized that the hunter was none other than Lord Shiva himself and begged his pardon. He asked for forgiveness. Then Shiva and Lord Parvati gave darshan to Arjuna and blessed him with this, presented him with this Pashupasa. That's how Arjuna got this weapon. Interesting, huh? There's past tense to lots of things that we read and we go along, but there's always a past tense attached to it. Pashupata Ashtra. That's how Arjuna got it. Right. Let us go on to the next verse now. Next verse is 34. Anybody else wants to read? Veronica Mataji, you want to read? Veronica, you want to read the Sanskrit?
Okay, I'll read. Is it text 34?
34, 34. We're 34 now. Yeah.
Okay.
Page 106 in my book.
Okay.
Right.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Akritim chapi bhutani katayishyanti te Shambhavitasya Shakirti Maranam Atirichyate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Purport, both as friend and philosopher to Arjuna, Lord Krishna now gives his final judgment regarding Arjuna's refusal to fight. The Lord says, Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield before the battle even begins, people will call you a coward. And if you think that people may call you bad names, but that you will save your life by fleeing the battlefield, then my advice is that you do better to die in the battle. For a respectful man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So you should not flee for fear of your life. Better to die in the battle. That will save you from the ill fame of misusing my friendship and from losing your prestige in society. So the final judgment of the Lord was for Arjuna to die in the battle and not withdraw. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So you see, Krishna is going on very strongly on the point of you must do your duty. He says, if you a respectable man, you're such a respectable man. For a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death. So if Arjuna leaves the battlefield and flees from the battlefield, people will think he's a coward. They will call him a coward. They'll say he was afraid. He was so afraid he couldn't do his duty. He's such a coward. And he will lose all respect. Likewise with us, how do we apply it in our lives? How do we apply it in our lives? Veronica Mataji, how do we apply it in our lives? This very point here, for a respectable man like you, ill fame is worse than death.
Yeah. I'm really not sure how I'm going to answer that. In our lives, I can't think of an example offhand.
Okay, all right. Ill fame is worse than death. Let's take a normal, simple example in our day-to-day lives. Right? Let's do that. So we can apply it. Right? Ill fame is worse than death. We have, let's take a parent, for example. Mothers. Aren't we meant to be, don't we have natural motherly, maternal instincts in us? And we love and care and nurture our children. But at the same time, if you look at social media, if you look at the news, because this day and age is so degraded, it's Kali Yuga, you find that people abandon their children. Isn't that ill fame when you read of that, such articles? Doesn't it make you look at a person as being degraded? That you would abandon your duty as such? The child is your duty. The child is your duty. That's one example. Take a duty of a child, a son, to the father. Instead of taking care of the father, what do? When your father is old, you read in the news and things. You hear of stories. People say, it's too much of a burden now. Abandon him. I won't do my duty. Let somebody else take care of him. Or put him in an old age home because I can't deal with this. Not because of circumstances, but because it's disrupting my day-to-day life. That's ill fame. Because the duty of the son is to look after his parents. The duty of a man is to look after his wife. How much of this nonsense are we reading in the social media? We husbands, we celebrated Women's Day recently, didn't we? In August. August is said to be Women's Month or something, at least here in South Africa. How many men look after their wives like they should, like respectable people? There's so much of violence against women and children. Is that respectable? That's not respectable. That's ill fame. And such actions attract reaction, good and bad attract reaction, right? So such sort of exchanges attracting bad karma attracts bad karma, and it's ill fame. And you know what? It is worse than death. We may not look at it in that serious light that it is, but it is a very serious topic. Our duty is very serious. What's our duty as devotees? Respect, worship even, and serve others, other devotees, serve the Lord. That's our duty. Our duties as disciples, to fulfill the words of your instructions of your Guru. That's our duty. Our duty generally, as well, is to read and study Shastra, like what we're doing right now. Understand your eternal position in relation to the Lord. Find out who we are. Why are we here? What is our goal? Where are we going to? Where are we meant to go to? And most importantly, after you've asked yourself all these questions, most importantly, how do we go there? And how do we go there? We say this almost every week. Reading and studying Shastra under bona fide spiritual master. Now we are reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are studying the purports of a bona fide world teacher, spiritual personality, spiritual master who is His Divine Grace, A.P.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We are reading his purports. That is our duty. Is that okay? Paramatma Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Right, let's read verse 35. Ayatranaduparadham mamashyanti tvam maharatah yesham cha tvam bahumato bhutva yasya silaghavam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefields out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that these great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. So you lose your name, in other words, by doing wrong things. You lose your respect in society, you lose your name. And in this case, Arjuna loses his fame as well. Verse 36. Anybody else want to read?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Verse text 36. Avachya vadam cha bahunam dishyanti tavahitaha nindata samarthya tatho dukhantaranu kima. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Purport. Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's uncalled for plea for compassion, and he describes his compassion as befitting the non-Aryans. Now, in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Right, so Krishna goes on to say, people will talk ill about you. And that will be very painful, it will be hurtful. Nobody likes to be spoken ill of, right? So we must be mindful and attentive to what we're meant to do. We must do the correct thing, in other words. Right, next verse. We got on verse 37. Anybody else wants to read? Kishore Mataji, you want to read?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ato va prapsya si sargva swarga jitva va pokshashe mahim tasmadutishta konteya yuddhaya kruta nishchayah. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planet, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with a determination and fight. Purport. Even though there was no certainty of victory for Arjuna's side, he still had to fight. Even being killed there, he could be elevated into the heavenly planet. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Right, so see, Krishna is giving him reasons. O son of Kunti, who's the son of Kunti here? Arjuna, right? We said, yes, his mother's name is Kunti. So he's a son, he's dressed as son of Kunti. O son of Kunti, so even if you are killed here on the battlefield, you will attain the heavenly planets. But if you don't get killed on the battlefield, you will inherit this kingdom and you will enjoy earthly kingdom. So it's a no loss, it's a win-win, it's a win-win situation. Right? You're not going to lose in any way. So let's discuss. We discussed just now a little bit about our duties. We'll stop here at verse 37 and continue next week. But we've got a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, some discussion. Let's open up the chat. We've got 72 verses in chapter 2, right? So next week we'll start from 38. We'll see how far we go. Probably another 2 more lessons, I think, or maybe 3, and we'll be done with chapter 2. Okay, who wants to discuss more? I discussed just now about duties. Anybody else? Give examples, have questions, offer anything. Madhuri Mataji? Paramatma Prabhu?
Hi, Maji, thank you for the class. Maji, I only have a question about Dharma. I'm a bit unsure.
Yeah.
When you say he fights for Dharma, and also I'm unsure about religious principle that he fought for. I understand the part about the duty. I just want to know, is duty the same as religious principles?
Yes, Prabhu, it is.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
The Dharma part, I wasn't sure about, Mataji. Is that the same thing?
Yes, it's the same thing. Dharma means principles.
Okay.
Religious principles. See, we've got 4 religious principles that we have to follow, right? As you know, in ISKCON. We follow 4 religious principles, and you know the 4 religious principles, right? Non-violence, cleanliness, truthfulness, and what's the 4th one, Paramatma Prabhu? Truthfulness, non-violence, no gambling, cleanliness, all of that, right? So yeah, Dharma is religious principles. We follow those religious principles. And sorry, just clarify again, Paramatma, from what you said your question was?
No, my question was,
what?
is it the same as duty?
Yes. If Krishna is giving you duty, yeah, definitely it's the same. Dharma means religious principles. So you've got to abide by certain religious codes and conduct in life. And that religious code and conduct is your duty. It's the duty of everybody to follow religious principles and to follow the order and the instruction of Krishna, which is what Krishna is instructing Arjuna to fight. Arjuna needs to fight. Krishna is giving Arjuna instructions throughout his entire Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna needs to follow it. So in other words, Krishna is giving us the instruction and we need to follow it. That is dharma. That is duty. Okay, Paramatma Prabhu.
Thank you, Maji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, you unmuted. You wanted to say something?
It's he says to Mother Kunti's son Arjuna, Krishna Bhagwan says to him, get up and fight, and even if you be killed on the battlefield, you'll still attain heaven.
Yes.
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 And he's, in other words, saying, go and do your duty.
Yes.
There you will die on the battlefield or you win the kingdom, you'll still go to heaven.
Yes. Correct. You know, there's so many pastimes you can extract from scripture where people, just by doing their duty, attained higher planetary systems, heavenly planets, etc. It's the same thing here in principle, right? Where Krishna is saying to Arjuna, stand up and fight. You're a Kshatriya, it's your duty. You'll attain heavenly planets if you are killed. So there's so many, pastimes from scripture where you hear of personalities. Look at from the Ramayana, Mother Ahilya. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that katha, with that pastime or that leela. Mother Ahilya was such a devoted wife, and Indra played cowardly with her. And when her husband came back, he understood or believed that she was being impious, and he cursed her to become a stone. But she was totally innocent, absolutely 100% innocent, and very devoted in her duty to her husband. So after he did that, he realized, and he said, okay, fine, I curse you to become a stone. But when the Supreme Lord appears on this earth and does his pastime, does his leela in Ramkatha, he will place his foot on your stone, on the stone, and he will turn back into a woman and then gain liberation into higher planetary systems. That's because of the potency of her duty. That's only one example. There's so many. Okay, anybody else?
One more thing I would like to share, Mataji, that
Yes.
Krishna also told Arjuna that you have to follow your duty. But one more thing, when this Yudhishthira was dying at that time, he told that things will change in every era.
Yes.
Means but you have to follow according to the situations, right? So this is the Kali Yuga, Kali Yuga. So
Yes.
it doesn't mean that if somebody is slapping you, then again and again you have to, told that person that you can slap me and I'm still standing over here. So things will change, but being polite and kind, keeping yourself patient. So in that way, Mataji, you are getting what I'm saying.
I absolutely understand. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that share. That's a very important point that you made.
Yes. So because Dwapar Yuga was extremely different from the that Rama Kala. So he was also sharing that thought that why you haven't followed the way Rama has won the battle. Like he has also won the battle when people were not where people were not dying, and you have in this Kurukshetra you have finished all the caste, and so many people were killed. Why you haven't fought in the way the Rama has won the battle? So he told that in every era, like this is the Dwapar Yuga, and the Kali Yuga will come after that. Many types of people will come. So in every era, people will be different, and you have to you have to
live in
face the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Face the situation according to the. Yeah. This one.
So it's time, place, and circumstances, Mataji. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. No, correct. Thank you. So Mataji is saying here that yes, time, place, and circumstances. As much as she used the example, if I'm correct me, Mataji, if I'm wrong. What you're saying is that if you use the example that if somebody slaps you, you shouldn't turn and give them the other cheek and say, yeah, slap me on the other side of my face.
Yes.
Because as much as devotees are humble, right?
Yes.
They're also straightforward and they are not weak. Devotees are not weak. They may be humble, but don't mistake humble humility for weakness. Those are two different things. Right. So maybe you can read up on 26 qualities of a devotee. Devotees are brave. They are straightforward. They are truthful. They are also humble. So if something needs to be said, you say it in a humble way, but straightforward, but in a humble way, so as to not offend anybody. But you should be able to. You should be able to defend yourself as well. We've got duties towards ourselves as well. We need to protect ourselves too, right?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And the 4 yugas Mataji spoke about, I think everybody's familiar with it. We have Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and now in the final Yuga, which is called Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the last, is the last Yuga. And it's the Yuga where it's referred to as the dark age. Kali, right? It's a dark age where you find the consciousness of humans are far more diminished compared to the other yugas. That's why, when we spoke earlier on in those verses where we said the Brahmanas used to do these mantras for animals, put them through sacrifice, and then the animals attained human bodies. And those Brahmanas attained the heavenly planets. But they were able to do it in those preceding yugas, where the consciousness was far more elevated and they had the capacity, they had the intelligence to do it. We don't have it now. So we should not imitate. We should not imitate. Am I right, Mataji? That's what you were getting at as well.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Okay, so we shall stop here then. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. We shall have Nashinga Dev's pranams. Okay, Kadruta Mataji, you want to lead pranams today, Nashinga Dev pranams?
No, my voice is very bad. I'm like a donkey.
Okay, no problem. Navkishore Mataji or even Himani Mataji, you want to have a turn today? Yes?
Yes, Mataji.
Sorry, Mataji.
Who wants to have a turn? I'm asking to lead Nashinga Dev's pranams today. Any of you?
Mataji, I'm not getting what you are trying to say.
We are singing Nashinga Dev pranam now. Would you like to sing it for us?
What is the pranam? I don't know.
Okay, Nashinga Dev. Unfortunately, I don't have the copy on my laptop to present it and share it with you today. Anybody else?
Okay.
Maybe next
Mataji, I can sing.
Next week, Mataji, and we'll put a copy on. Then you can do it next. Okay, sing. Who's singing first? Navkishore Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Ladalaini. Hiranyakalaini. Hiranyakashipu vrikshaha.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Shiratankalnakhalayi.
Ilatankanakalaye.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Yato Tato Narsimha.
Yato Yani Tato Narsimha.
Hriday. Sorry, Mataji, can you?
Bahir Narsimha Hridaye
Narsimha. Bhai Narsimha Hriday Narsimha. Sharanam Prapatye.
Narasimhamabhim Sharanam Pravade.
तव कर कमल वरेण काम अद्भुत श्रृंगम दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गम केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा वरेण काम अद्भुत श्रृंगम दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गम केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे काम अद्भुत श्रृंगम दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गम केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे
जय जगदीश
जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
Jai Jagadish Hare.
जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव
Jaya Narasimhadev, Narasimhadev,
नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jai Prahlad Maharaj.
नरसिंहदेव भगवान
की जय. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
प्रभुपाद
Prabhupada,
प्रभुपाद
Jaya Jaya
जय
Prabhupada.
प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय
Jaya
जय
Jaya Prabhupada.
प्रभुपाद नरसिंहदेव भगवान की
की जय.
जय प्रहलाद
Om
महाराज की जय
Om Nama Om Vishnu Pad Paramhansa Parivargacharya Stotra. His Divine Grace of He Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu
जय
Pad Paramhansa Parivargacharya Stotra. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Purnyananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sadguru Bhakti Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Mayapur Jagannath Puri Pandharpur Arvade Kurukshetra Ayodhya Dwarika Dham ki jai. Shri Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav
की जय
Vrind ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, dear devotees. It was such a lovely interactive session today. I encourage this going forward.
Thank you so much, my dear S. Thank you.
Thank you Mataji
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. See you all next week.